Kaieteur Radio, keeping you informed.
Demerara and Essequibo 99.1 FM.
Burby's 99.5 FM. Kaieteur Radio.
Hello and welcome to your news at noon. It comes to you with the compliments of Rasna Drink Mix. I am Kevin Smith. Before we get to the top stories we're tracking today, let's get to the front page comment of today's Kaieteur news. Taking our oranges and giving us peanuts. Imagine your stepfather sold out a large farm, which your real father left for you. He sold it to his friend Robert, who lives in Canada. Once a year, Robert sends over a few oranges. Your family is so happy to receive these few oranges every year that you want to hug and kiss Robert and tell him that a good man he is to send the family some oranges. You do not realize that it is your own oranges which he is sending to you. It is your farm from which he is picking thousands of other oranges and selling to make himself rich. If you had control over your father's farm, you would be able to sell the oranges and use that money to buy whatever fruits and food you need. This is similar to what is happening with our oil blocks. The persons and companies which have been given these blocks are now handing out a few peanuts each year. One example is the peanuts paid for sponsorship for cricket. The people get excited with these peanuts because they are able to see cricket, all the while forgetting that those same oil companies are carting off billions of your oil wealth while spending a few thousand US dollars on the cricket. Former Minister Robert Prasad and former President Donald Ramotar oversaw the giveaway of the Kanji oil block. The owners are now telling us that they will sponsor cricket for us to see. They must believe that we are stupid. Give us back our oil blocks and we will pay for our own cricket. And now for the top stories we're tracking. In the fleecing of Guyana series, Kanji owner sold 8 to 7.5% of block. Guyana got no capital gains tax, contracts signed by Ramotar. Meanwhile, new oil producers must establish strong criteria to weed out bad companies bidding for oil blocks, says Chatham House. And Chief Justice to hear full trial for elections petition to hear preliminary issues on November 24th. Meanwhile, Health Ministry orders 20,000 antigen tests for hinterland to produce COVID-19 results within minutes. And argument over cash leaves teen dead. Stay tuned to stay informed.
Sexual abuse, and the perpetrator can be nearer than you think. So stay alert and be aware. Be aware of your neighbors. Be aware of your friends. Be aware of the people you have in your home. Do not become complacent. Protect children now. You can make a report to the police or call the CPA hotline on 227-0979.
A message from the Child Care and Protection Agency, Ministry of Human Services and Social Security, and UNICEF.
Digital is not a buzzword, it is a culture. At Digicel, we've made it our mission to enrich your digital lives. That's why we're bringing together more of all the experiences you love. The best and widest variety of music, podcast and local radio, cloud storage, messaging and more. Welcome to Digital at Digicel. Digicel, better together.
And now for the news in detail. The owner of the Kanji Block Mid-Atlantic Oil and Gas has benefited from its sale of 87.5% of the Stabroek Block ownership. But Ghana did not benefit from the payment of capital gains tax on the transactions. In keeping with a series of provisions which severely reduced Ghana's revenue streams from its oil sector, the Kanji license granted by former President Donald Ramatar to Mid-Atlantic Oil and Gas exempts the contractor from paying capital gains tax to the people of Guyana. Capital gains tax is what is charged on the sale of any property or asset. If you sell land or a vehicle, you are expected to pay this tax. GRA tells Guyanese that they must pay 20% capital gains tax on any such property transaction. Yet Mid-Atlantic and its rich joint venture partners are free and clear of this expense. In other news, for new and emerging oil-producing nations, it is advisable that policy leaders put in place strong criteria that will be used for assessing companies interested in oil and gas blocks. So said Chatham House, a non-governmental organization based in London since 1920. According to the International Advocate for Transparency and Good Governance, it is critical for governments to establish strong pre-qualification criteria, since such a mechanism would help to weed out companies that do not have the capacity to carry out the work programs for exploring such assets. In fact, Chatham House stressed that having a pre-qualification criterion is actually more likely to result in the most qualified company being selected to explore and develop the oil or gas block. In other news, Chief Justice Roxanne George Wiltshire is expected to do a full trial of the 2 election petitions filed by the APNU-AFC. However, this is expected after she hears arguments on preliminary issues raised in the matter on November 24, 2020. During the case management conference held in relation to the matters at the Georgetown High Court yesterday, the Chief Justice told attorneys involved in the case that the court will hear a full-blown trial of the petitions filed to challenge the last elections. The judge, however, did not give a date for the hearing of the substantive matter. And moving on, the Ministry of Health has placed an order for 20,000 antigen tests, which will be sent to selected hinterland regions to improve their testing capacity. The announcement was made by Minister of Health Dr. Frank Anthony. He disclosed that the antigen tests will produce faster results for persons being tested for COVID-19 within the specified hinterland regions. The National Public Health Reference Laboratory's testing capacity was increased when the government acquired a $7.2 million automated extractor, which can process up to 96 test samples within 2 to 3 hours. The minister said that the antigen tests are expected to arrive in November, and once they arrive, they will be immediately deployed to the areas in need. Let's tell you now that a disagreement over money owed has left 18-year-old Adrian Perlet dead after he was on Wednesday stabbed to death by 3 men. According to information, Perlet was stabbed at around 21 hours at a location in Durban Street, but succumbed hours later while receiving treatment at the Georgetown Public Hospital. We were told that the suspects walked up to their victim and started a conversation. An argument erupted soon after, allegedly over some money Perlet owed them. Things then turned ugly after the men stabbed him to the chest and ran away. You are tuned in to Kaieteur Radio 99.1 and 99.5 FM. Coming up after the break, Ministry Malls turn system for Stabroek Park bus drivers. Do stay tuned.
On the national outlook for commentary on a range of issues, immediately after the 12 noon and 7 p.m. newscasts on Kaieteur Radio at 99.1 FM and 99.5 FM. Looking forward to you sharing in the conversation.
Welcome back. Let us continue with the news. The Ministry of Home Affairs Minister is moving to develop a rotation system for bus drivers in the Stabroek area. The initiative falls under efforts by the ministry to ease traffic congestion within the area. The matter was discussed during a meeting on Wednesday, which saw attendances by minibus drivers, vendors, and others, as well as the Minister of Home Affairs, Robeson Ben. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss a string of issues like road safety and congestion in the Stabroek Market Square. In addition to implementing the turn system at bus parks, other measures like completing road maintenance work around the Stabroek area, demarcating road lanes, and reinstalling barriers at the Kitty Campbellville Bus Park were also discussed. In other news, there is minimal to no risk of an oil spill from the Nabarima oil vessel, which was reported to be listing off of the Venezuelan coast last week. This and other details were shared yesterday by Guyana Civil Defense Commission. The commission indicated that based on assessments conducted by Trinidad and Tobago, the efforts to relieve the Nabarima of its 1.3 million barrels of oil cargo, as well as the ongoing remedial works being conducted, brings minimal risk of an oil spill in the Gulf of Paria, a stretch of water between Venezuela and Trinidad and Tobago. In other news, 2 of the 3 murder suspects that recently escaped from the Lusignan prison, East Coast Demerara, were yesterday recaptured and placed back in custody, where they are assisting with the investigation into the circumstances surrounding their escape and being processed for court. According to a release from the prison services, swift and tactical action by the members of the joint services acting on information received resulted in 20-year-old Alex Matthias and 19-year-old Arnold Bruce Kennedy being recaptured at Zeeland Public Road on the east bank of Essequibo. However, the third murder suspect, 25-year-old Mark Rufino, a laborer of Perico Facade, is still at large. Anyone with information on Rufino's whereabouts is asked to contact the nearest police station or 225-6411. All information will be treated with the strictest confidentiality. In other news, PNC chairperson and former Health Minister Valda Lawrence yesterday failed to present herself at the Criminal Investigation Department headquarters, as requested by the police. Meanwhile, yesterday afternoon, APNU AFC supporters protested outside the office of the Director of Public Prosecution, Shalimar Ali Haq. Lawrence was scheduled to report at CID at 13 hours yesterday in relation to the ongoing investigation into electoral fraud committed during and after the March 2020 elections. After Lawrence failed to appear, coalition supporters with placards protested outside the Eve Leary office of the DPP. And now let's tell you, on Wednesday, the Amerindian People's Association met with the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs to discuss ways in which the organization can further support the development of Indigenous peoples in Guyana. Meanwhile, Minister Sukai, in her remarks, stated that she has been following the activities of the organization and looks forward to future collaborations with the APA for the continued development of Indigenous peoples across the country. It is now 12 hours 15. Coming up next is your COVID-19 update.
The government of Guyana has begun the rollout of the COVID-19 $25,000 household cash grant. Citizens are being advised that there is no pre-registration requirement. Clearly identified distribution clerks under the supervision of the Ministry of Finance will visit the respective households to verify credentials. Following this exercise, distribution will be done on a house-to-house basis. In cases where there are multiple households in one home, only the principal householder will receive the cash grant in the first instance. However, the other householders will be required to provide their information on a pink form, and following verification, they will receive the cash grant. The $25,000 household cash grant is in keeping with the government's promise to provide economic relief during the COVID-19 pandemic.
The number of worldwide coronavirus cases has reached 42,203,852, with deaths at 1,145,253. Recovery cases worldwide has reached 31,277,750. Locally, the Ministry of Health recorded 27 new COVID-19 cases yesterday. Additionally, 16 patients are in the COVID-19 ICU, 70 in institutional isolation, and 821 in home isolation. The cases recorded yesterday brings the nation's COVID-19 numbers to 3,877. Meanwhile, 117 persons have died from the virus. Coming from CNN, more than 24 U.S. states are reporting rising COVID-19 cases, and the new White House task force reports show a worsening of the pandemic across several regions of the country. Meanwhile, remdesivir has been approved by U.S. FDA for coronavirus treatment. The antiviral has shown at best a modest benefit for COVID-19 patients. And Europe is fighting a seemingly unstoppable second wave of the virus, with several countries imposing new restrictions in response to surging infections. And that brings us to the end of today's news at noon. Remember, the news came to you with the compliments of Ras and a Drink Mix. I am Kevin Smith. Thank you for listening.
Want value for your advertising dollar? Then place your ads on Kaieteur Radio's Newscasts. Streamed live on 6 different mediums, reaching hundreds of thousands. Advertise today and watch your dollar grow. Call us on 225-8465 or 226-8210 today.